Nice. Welcome back to What Do You Know with Nick and Devin. I'm Nick.
I'm Devin.
Hey, Dev.
Hello.
How are you today?
Oh, I'm okay.
Yeah? You know, when this episode comes out, it's Christmas Eve. So, Merry Christmas to you, sir. Happy holidays.
Oh, wow. I didn't even realize.
Surprise.
Oops. Hey, happy holidays to you as well.
Thanks. And to all you beautiful people out there.
Course,
yes, of course.
It's not just us in the room. It's you too.
Surprise. Okay, so Dev, tell me, what are like Christmas traditions or holiday traditions that you wish we would like end? Like you don't want them anymore.
I think it's a tough one. It's a tough one.
You're like all of it. Burn it to the ground.
No, not all of it. I'm trying to figure out how I can word getting rid of the capitalist ideals that surround this time of year. You know what I learned a little bit about earlier this month?
Tell me.
Was I'm not an expert by any means, but a few details of Kwanzaa.
Ah, okay.
Allie was telling me about it, and she was saying that it came about in the 1960s as kind of like a fuck you to Christmas and capitalism.
Okay.
Specifically capitalism and the white man.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, we're going to, instead of buying gifts, we're still going to give each other gifts, but they're going to be handmade and they're going to be super thoughtful. And it's going to be kind of like this celebration that we can support each other, and we can, we don't need anyone. Like we have our community, essentially. Boiled down to a burnt pot of an explanation.
Yeah.
But like, I'm really vibing with that. So I think I would that's what I would change. I mean, I celebrate Christmas, so I would change that about Christmas.
Sure. So more thoughtfulness, more not just like I have to run out and buy gifts and like give you like it feels so
less
regimented.
Consumerism.
Yeah.
More about what the holiday should be about. What all of the holidays should be more so about is togetherness, community.
Yeah, I like that. I do think that there needs to be more of like intentional time spent.
Yeah.
You know, I think like Vinny was asking me during dinner the other day. He was like, "So like, what was your like thorn for this past year? What are you looking forward to next year, etc." Right?
Oh.
And so something I had said was I was like, "Oh, I'm looking really forward to like spending intentional time with people versus just like running out and like I don't know." Grabbing a drink or just like running out and just feeling like I have to spend time with people. Does that make sense? And I feel like for the holidays, sometimes it can be very like, I feel like I have to be here with you because of XYZ or like I have to get you this. So there's a lot of like just that sort of like pressure on it. But if it's just like about being with people in community and sharing time and holding space and doing all those things, then yeah, I think that's awesome.
Less obligatory, more intentional.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like that. I want a intentional greater than obligatory t-shirt, please.
I'll get on it.
Thank you. Hand sewn, please.
Oh God.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Maybe Allie can help you with that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But that's fair. I totally get that. The next question I'm going to ask you before we get into the topic is, what has been your favorite gift that you've gotten?
My favorite gift that I've gotten. I don't know. I'm sure I'm like missing something.
Nothing stands out to you?
No, I would have to really like go through
Fair.
all of my stuff.
Fair.
Because I often ask for practical gifts for like my birthday and Christmas. Because like things that I want and like whatever, like I'm like I'll get that for myself.
Sure.
But if there's something that's like, oh, like this is something I won't buy myself, but like I could use it. Like for my birthday, my parents got me a hedge trimmer.
Oh,
that matches the same brand as my lawnmower and snowblower, so they can swap batteries.
You're just such a homeowner. Christ.
So like that was pretty neat. And I used that a lot over the summer, but like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how to answer your question.
That's okay. That's fine.
How about you?
I think like obviously like, when we were kids, you know, you get like the toy that you wanted or you know things like that.
There's so many Lego sets or like Beast Wars that I got that were awesome.
Yes, Beast Wars.
Yeah, Rat Trap. Come on.
Rat Trap.
Yeah.
Mousetrap.
Rat Trap.
What was Rat Trap?
Rat Trap was a Beast War.
Oh,
He was a Maximal from the Beast Wars show.
you'll have to show me later.
Okay.
No recollection is popping.
Only one other person will also get it.
Right. But my dad had gotten me a really nice bottle of scotch one year. That was really, really great. And like, I nursed it over the course of like 2 to 3 years.
Sure. Yeah.
And that was awesome because it felt very like intentional in the sense of, you know, we had been talking about like bourbons and whiskeys and scotches and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
he had kind of went out and looked this one up and done all the things. And so it was a really nice bottle. And so that's probably one of my favorite gifts as of late,
Sure.
just because it felt so like unique in a way. But yeah, I mean, all gifts are great. Except when
gift
it's
of
like,
life?
yeah, the gift of life. Except when it's like when people are like, oh, I do hate that. Like when you go to like a family thing and they do like a white elephant and everyone brings like a pair of gloves and it's like nobody needs this.
No.
I'd rather just not have the gift. You know what I mean? Like I would rather just like not have the white elephant if it feels obligatory and you're not like give me a white elephant that has like a theme. You know what I mean? Or like something that like people can get involved in versus like, oh, I think I have an old bottle of wine laying around, you know?
Yeah. Allie's family does this thing each year where they play this game called the Dice Game.
Okay.
And essentially like you all gather around this long ass table. And all of the gifts that people bring are in the center of the table. And you roll dice. If you get doubles, you get to pick a gift out. And
Okay.
You don't know what the gift is.
Sure.
And then that's like the first round. And then round 2, once all the gifts have been claimed, you roll the dice again. But when you get doubles, you can steal a gift from someone. And there's a time on the clock for that. So then you just wind up with like a bunch of mystery gifts, maybe. But what's fun about that is everyone it's always like silly stuff.
Sure.
Like everyone has in the mindset, like we're going to get some like ridiculous, like out of the box, silly gifts.
Yeah.
And I think that's, if you're going to do a white elephant, go into the mindset of being like, it's going to be a silly gift.
Yeah. It's not going to be something that's like meaningful in some way or something like that.
It's not going to be something that I like had to blow 3 layers of dust off. Yeah.
Yeah. I get that. Okay, well, today, with gifts in mind, traditions in mind, things of that nature, we're going to be talking about the kind of original Christmas. So, Devin, what do you know about Saturnalia?
Oh, that's not where I thought you were going. I thought we were going to talk about like Nazareth and the inn.
No.
Like, do you know the 3 kings' names?
Yeah, this is actually a whole Catholic quiz for you today.
Shit, I dropped out of CCD after 3rd grade.
CCD. Incredible.
Can you ask the question again? I didn't hear you.
Absolutely. More than happy to. What do you know about Saturnalia?
Saturnalia. Country of origin, please?
Italy.
Sounds about right.
Did that help you in any way? No, exactly.
I thought it might have been Greek, but
there's Greek influence.
I got nothing.
So Saturnalia is
so Saturn though.
Yeah,
I'm breaking it down now.
You're gonna keep going with it. You want me to go?
No, I'm gonna keep going with it.
Okay.
Saturn. So like, Jupiter is, the big god in the Roman gods.
Jupiter is the equivalent of
Zeus,
right?
So then Saturn. Who's Saturn in the Roman gods? I don't remember.
Who's above Zeus?
Was Saturn Kronos?
Mm-hmm.
Because Uranus is the primordial god of the sky with Gaia.
Yes.
Okay, so then Saturn would be Kronos.
Mm-hmm.
And then, okay, so we're celebrating Kronos.
Mm-hmm.
And he brings gifts.
Oh, Christ. This is hard to watch. I'm just going to go.
In exchange for your children that he can eat, he gives you gifts.
1, 2. Mm-hmm. So, Saturnalia is the ancient Roman festival holiday in honor of the god Saturn.
Okay.
So it is held on December 17th, then extended to the 19th over some time. Then by the 1st century BC, extended through the 23rd. So it kind of went through some fluctuation. So it started on like one day, kind of expanded out again, came back a little, kind of went back and forth a bit. But this was all per the Julian calendar. So a little more information about the Julian calendar, because I was like, why are we in the Gregorian calendar, not the Julian calendar?
Yeah,
Well,
please.
let me tell you. So the Julian calendar adds a day every 4th year, leap day, right? Gregorian calendar adds a day every 4th year, but does not add a day when the year is divisible by 100 and not divisible by 400.
I knew that. And
Yes.
there's like there's a third like weird rule, I think.
I didn't get to that rule.
That's
I
okay.
only have two. I'm sorry. So the Gregorian calendar is also more accurate than the Julian calendar, with an average year as 365.2422 days and an error of only 26 seconds per solar year.
Wow, per year.
Isn't that crazy?
That is very wild.
The Julian is an average of 365.25 days and an error of 11 minutes per solar year.
That's too much time.
Too much time. Too much time. So in 1582, Pope Gregory the 13th authorized the adoption of the Gregorian calendar because seasonal equinoxes were falling 10 days too early, and some church holidays, such as Easter, did not always fall in the proper season. We can't have that.
No, not at all.
Not at all.
Jesus has to
Jesus
come up
can't
in spring.
die in spring or in winter. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
So the world jumped, when this happened, the world jumped from October 4th to October 15th overnight. They're like, today is October 4th. Tomorrow, October 15th.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And then subsequent countries had to do the same that adopted it. Britain didn't accept the Gregorian calendar until 1752 when they had to jump 11 full days.
That's wild. That's so many Daily Garfield comics. It's just a rich rip through.
Boo. Bad joke. And I saw you laughing. You were setting it up too.
I was ready for it.
Yeah.
I was laughing at myself.
So there was a sacrifice at the Temple of Saturn, followed by some food, gift giving, role reversal, partying, gambling, and other kind of merriment, if you will.
Are we going to get into role reversal? Because I'm confused.
Don't you worry.
Okay.
So it was a very lively kind of carnival type atmosphere. There was also a king of Saturnalia who presided over merriment.
Okay.
The holiday is rumored to have featured, quote, lads running naked about the place, cross-dressing for dinner, tops becoming bottoms, masters waiting for their servants, sausages, wine, cunnilingus, and fruitcake.
What a list.
What a list.
Should we bring this back?
My favorite is the last two, the fruitcake and the cunnilingus kind of together. So that was a fun little wordplay.
Both are a jaw workout.
Yeah. If you will. If you will. So that's kind of like the basis of Saturnalia.
Sure.
So kind of like your abstract, if you will.
Yeah.
So let's get into a little bit of the origins and talk about like Saturn as a god himself.
Yeah.
So Saturn is most similar to Cronus in Greece. He consorted with his sister Opis, casually. He fathered Jupiter, which is Zeus, Neptune, Poseidon, Pluto, which is Hades, Juno, which is Hera, Ceres, which is Demeter, and Vesta, which is Hestia. So he's the god of time, generation, dissolution, abundance, wealth, agriculture, periodic renewal, and liberation.
Oh.
Yeah, he's got a lot kind of
I
going
didn't
on.
know that one part.
I didn't see a lot of I ate my children things here from the Roman perspective.
Yeah,
so it might
fair.
be a little bit more Greek. Just throwing it out there. So during his mythological reign, it was depicted as a golden age of abundance and peace. So a time without labor and with a state of innocence. Saturnalia was supposed to reflect the conditions of the lost age. So Saturnalia was a holiday from all forms of work. Schools were closed, exercise suspended, courts not in session, so justice could not be administered and war could not be declared.
That's interesting. I wonder why. I want to look into this later. I wonder why, like, the Romans depict Saturn, Kronos, however you want to say it, as someone who had like such a golden era of rule and reign. When you look at Greek mythology, like being under Kronos, like we had to be liberated from Kronos. We had to kill him, and like then Zeus came along, and everything was kind of great.
Well, and was it Zeus that changed the narrative?
Right.
Just saying.
Just saying.
Because he's kind of a dick.
He is very much so.
Kind of an asshole. But yeah, it is. What's interesting, and we'll get into it further, is that there is, with them being so close and the conquered nature of things and kind of going back and forth, there is a ton of influence from Greek on Roman things, whereas it's not so much the reverse in the aspect of this, in like mythology and such. Like the Greeks kind of hold true to their mythology and their things, and we'll talk about it in a bit, but Romans kind of are a little bit more adaptable for different reasons, and so you'll see some of that kind of pull over. But yeah, to your point, it is interesting that he is he's depicted more as like, I have a golden age of rule versus like, I am this titan monstrous thing.
Yeah. Although, I mean, like the Romans were kind of experimental and stuff until they found Christianity.
They were a little bit more freeing. Yeah. So Justinus, an ancient Roman historian, writes of Saturn, quote, "The first inhabitants of Italy were the Aborigines, whose king, Saturnus, is said to have been a man of such extraordinary justice that no one was a slave in his reign or had any private property, but all things were common to all and undivided as one estate for the use of everyone. In memory of which way of life, it has been ordered that at the Saturnalia, slaves should everywhere sit down with their masters, and at the entertainments, the rank of all made equal."
Interesting.
Yeah. So in Lucian's Saturnalia, a book, it is the god himself who proclaims, quote, "a festive season when 'tis lawful to be drunken and slaves have license to revile their lords," end quote. Yeah. So we'll get into a little bit more of like kind of the breakdown of that. But that's a little bit just about how like a little bit of Saturn, of the god, like who he was, and then also kind of the depiction of Saturnalia a little more. So some of the festivities, and I wonder if you'll start to pick up on some of, not only within the festivities, but what we've talked about so far, in relation to like the correlation that still hold true through holidays and like Christmas holiday time today. Yeah. So festivities starts with the rite at the Temple of Saturn. So the temple sat inside the Roman Forum at the base of Capitoline Hill, which I was like, Capitoline Hill? Capitol Hill? Anyone?
Oh,
anyone?
Well, yeah. We also have a Senate. They also invented the Senate.
I'm just helping the people.
Okay.
Thank you. I thought that was funny. Just me, I guess. You can have your fucking Garfield jokes, and I'll take Capitoline Hill. Okay.
I just think it was that hard of a line to connect.
So it was built and then consecrated. The temple was built and then consecrated in 497 BC. You can still see some of the temple today, actually. So the forum housed the state treasury and archives for both the Roman Republic and the beginning of the Roman Empire. When did that change, you ask? Exactly. So it went from the Roman kingdom to the Roman Republic after the overthrow, and then from the Roman Republic to the Empire in 27 BC following the War of Actium.
Okay.
So it kind of went through 3 periods of stature, but still Roman. The empire reigned from 27 BC until 476 AD. Yeah. That nuts?
That's wild.
Crazy. So inside the temple was a statue of Saturn, which normally had its feet bound in wool. This was then removed for the holiday as an act of liberation. So I don't know if it was like, we're going to bind it in wool to then kind of liberate him for the festival, or if the wool was there for a specific reason, and then they were like, oh, like what about for the festival? We like liberate him from the wool. I couldn't.
Did you see just his feet were bound in wool?
Yeah.
Or the whole statue?
No, just
so
his
we just
feet.
had little socks on.
Yeah.
And then they whip off his socks, let the dogs out.
Some feet play is happening. Yeah, exactly. The original.
All right.
So yeah, I wasn't quite sure why. But you know, liberation at the end of the day. Hey, we all need a little
liberté.
Thanks. We're a little bit more east. So the official rituals of the festival were performed according to Greek rite. So the Romans would often, and this is kind of what we were talking about before, the Romans would often adopt and reinterpret myths, iconography, and even religious practices for their own deities. And this was either a means of assimilation for their conquered into their religion, or in times of battle when it may favor them to pray and practice to the opposing gods.
Sure.
So notably in the Second Punic Wars, in a battle against Carthage, they prayed to their god to like offer him things so that they would win.
They prayed to Carthage's
gods. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Like, hey, can you fuck your own guys up?
Which I'm just like, would that work? Like, if I'm still appeasing my gods, and then all of a sudden I'm like, hey, what if I give you a, sacrificial lamb?
Yeah, I mean, like,
You about it?
I feel like most of the time, in order to gain a god's favor, it's usually like, oh, we have to have like continual practices and whatnot,
Yeah.
in order to like build up favors, kind
Yeah.
of a situation. Like, hey, we sacrificed like 1,000 goats for you. You can help us win this one war. But like, I don't know. Maybe some gods are like, yeah, fuck it.
Maybe if it's like big enough.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Right.
the whole like is it the Iliad? Yeah, in the Iliad, when they go and they're like, Demeter's mad.
Yeah.
Like, you have to like sacrifice something. He's like, I'm gonna sacrifice my daughter, and it's like really weird and fucked up. But they're like,
yeah.
this is a big enough sacrifice, like that kind of thing is what I'm thinking of.
Maybe.
But it's interesting that like that was the way they went to, because then that to me is saying like, oh, then I don't really give a fuck about our religion. Do you know what I mean? In a way, like, it's kind of lessens the intensity in which you worship your gods, because you so quickly can say, just to be within my favor, I'm going to then call out to the gods of the other.
I don't know.
You know what I mean?
Depends on like what the holy people
Yeah.
say.
Unless they're like, hey, come join our god clan, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Join our pantheon. Come
Yes,
on over.
thank you.
We got
That's
snacks.
way better than God Clan.
Yeah, a little
Go
bit, yeah.
dark real quick. So the sacrifice during the rite was officiated by a priest whose head was uncovered.
Oh.
I know, crazy. So typically in Roman rite, a priest would officiate a sacrifice capite velato, which means with head covered. This was done by like a special fold of the toga over the head, right? In some sources, in the 3rd century AD and later, Saturn is recorded as receiving dead gladiators as offerings as well. So gladiatorial events over 10 days throughout December were presented by quaestors and sponsored by funds from the treasury of Saturn. So I guess, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't look too much into this, but my inference was that there's kind of like a pot of money
Yeah.
to be able to worship each god and like the temple thereof and etc. So I think like some of the Saturn money goes to the
Gladiator fights.
gladiator fights, yeah.
And that's why we still have football games during Christmas. It's like a gladiator match.
Are you saying that for truth, or are you saying that's your correlation?
That's my correlation.
Oh, okay. I can see that. I was like, pause. I did not see that. So the gladiators fallen during these events were for Saturn. So gladiator manura.
Yeah.
So similar to when we think about, like, when we talk about the Aztecs, like there's kind of this like war or performance of battle.
Sure.
And then anyone fallen is sacrificial to the god that you're celebrating.
Having a heroic death.
Correct.
Yeah.
So Saturn is often tied closely not only with Pluto due to his chthonic nature, which is like underworld,
Yeah.
but with Lua. So Lua or Lua Saturni, Saturn's Lua, or Lua Mater, Mother Destruction,
Okay.
which I was like, hot, is the goddess in which the way of honor, and the way to honor her was to burn the weapons of enemies killed in war. So basically you would kill people, you collect all their weapons, and then burn them.
Yeah.
Which I was like, aren't most of those metal?
Not for a while.
Oh, true. It is
Yeah.
stone and wood and things. Yeah, that's fair.
And plus, bronze melts pretty quickly
Oh, okay.
if you're still in the Bronze Age.
Got it.
But once you go beyond that, then it gets a little tougher.
Burn it. So yeah, so I was like, oh, interesting. I thought that was interesting because some people think Lua was either a separate goddess or another name for Opus.
Oh.
Right. So I was like, interesting. I like that she's separate though.
Yeah.
I think that makes more sense to me. But I think this kind of calls into the aspect of potential like human sacrifice, because when the sacrifice is happening, it's not a human sacrifice. Like it is
Sure.
like a goat or whatever it might be.
Right.
But
Usually livestock.
usually livestock of some sort. But they were kind of saying, is there an aspect of that? And I'll talk about a little bit more in a second, but I think the Lua aspect of thing kind of calls into this like sort of like heavier, darker, like underworld where we would have to sacrifice life in order to like appease, right? So these ties often then suggest from other sources, such as Macrobius, that Pluto was to be placated with human heads and Saturn with sacrificial victims of men. So supposedly in myth, when Hercules visited Italy, he halted the practice and instead effigies and or masks were offered to Pluto, and candles were lit in honor of Saturn instead of sacrificial men, because in Greek, phota means both man and lights. So quick swap is the light of life.
Yeah.
So instead of actually killing people, we're just going to light some candles. Exactly. And instead of like giving you a head, I'm going to give you a mask or an effigy. Yeah. Isn't that cool? It was probably more that than it was like actual heads and bodies. Like I just like, I don't think we've seen in, not that I've really dove into the Roman, Empire, but I just don't feel that we've seen a lot of human sacrifice within their reign. And so I feel like that doesn't tend to match at least the depiction that we know.
Yeah, not as far as I know, not beyond like gladiator matches, because those lasted forever throughout the empire.
So post-sacrifice, the Roman Senate arranged a lectisternium, which another Greek rite, which typically involved placing a deity's image on a sumptuous, luxurious couch.
Ooh.
This exactly
nice,
right? Which was kind of funny because when I was typing this, we were just looking at couches, and I was just like, I just need like a soft couch. You know what I mean? I was like, I need a sumptuous, luxurious couch.
Yeah, can you put that in the keyword search?
Go to Joybird. Do you have a sumptuous couch by chance? So this would, as if the deity were present and actively participating in the festivities. So they were just kind of like, hey, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just kind of weird, like bust of a god. And you're just like, okay.
Yeah, it's just like hanging out with a wax sculpture of someone.
Right, like Weekend at Bernie's-ish. Yeah. So next would be a convivium, publicum, a public banquet.
Sure.
Trying to throw some Latin in, really take us back to the time,
really
feel that, and I'm really doing it well and justice. Feasts often included pork, since fattened pigs were a popular Saturnalia gift, as well as winter vegetables, dried fruits and dates, and sweet cakes. So drinking parties started here, and of course continued into private festivities as well. So a time, quote, to drink the most delightful drinks and to be the acclaimed a better singer in your cups than the next man, end quote. Basically, just get fucking drunk.
Yeah.
In the words of the ancient satirist Lucian.
Ah.
So wine was almost always mixed with water and sometimes honey or spices in a large bowl and then ladled into individual drinking cups. I was intrigued by the fact that they were adding spices and like water to dilute it versus just wine.
Now you got a punch.
Yeah, it's like a punch. It's like a punch. So
a holiday punch. I'm trying to still correlate the masks, because obviously the candles are easy.
Yes.
But I'm still trying to make a correlation with the masks. The
and
effigies.
there might not be.
I'll get it.
I mean, in my head, it's like a nativity scene.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Like you put up a little like effigies of people. Yeah.
Having the god like hang out on the couch. You got baby Jesus hanging out in his little haystack.
Yeah, I feel like we don't just like chill with Jesus. You know what I mean?
Some people do.
I don't think we're like putting him crucified, just like chilling on the couch, Because
you should come to my great aunt's house.
Although my grandmother used to have like maybe like a 4 foot tall or like 3 foot tall statue of the Virgin Mary. And so I could see hanging out with Mary.
Yeah.
I feel like Jesus would be an okay time. I feel like he'd constantly be like, I'm like brooding because like I'm gonna die soon. But like Mary would be like, let's just do it. Like my part's over.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I
like,
raised the kid. He's on his own.
Right,
He's
exactly.
18. He's out of the house.
She's like, let's go. Her and Mary Magd are just like, I get it. I get that.
Mary and John are empty nesters. We're going out.
And by John, you do mean Joseph.
Joseph, I do.
Or John the Baptist.
I dropped
Who knows
out
what
in
happened
third
later.
grade.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. We didn't get to that part yet. Yeah. Incredible.
My great aunt also had not a large statue. It was maybe about the size of this microphone, maybe a little bigger, of St. George killing a dragon. And that was really fucking cool. That was my favorite statue growing up as a kid. Because it was like, we got a knight killing a dragon. The knight's on a horse. Prime.
In Christianity? Crazy.
Yeah. And then I learned about St. George. I was like, all right, cool.
Sick. So everyone was allowed to partake in the drinking. Yay! Even Cato the Elder, famous for his frugality, allocated extra wine to his farmhands, about 20 pints per person. During the
pints
festival.
of wine. Is this the water? Probably the watered down wine.
I think everyone's drinking the watered down wine.
Yeah.
But like also 20
20
pints.
pints
Like I get it over a couple of days, but still.
Yeah.
Even over 4 days, you're drinking 5 pints of wine.
I haven't drank 20 pints in a long time.
Here we go. Cuts. So on the 18th and 19th, public business was still closed while families conducted domestic rituals. So bathing occurred early in the day. Suckling pigs were sacrificed to Saturn, if one could afford it, of course. And these times were for more private festivities. So the day of the 17th was really like everyone's coming together. Everything's very like public festival, revelry in the street, all of those things. And that kind of continued to a degree. But really the 18th and 19th were more like private domestic home situations with some spillover from there.
Friends and family.
If you will. So let's talk about these private festivities.
Yeah.
Let's start with role reversal.
Okay.
So it's actually not as sexual as it might seem, although there is some role play involved.
Sure.
But role reversal mainly was for slaves were treated to a banquet and treated as equals during Saturnalia. To kind
the
of
whole year worth it.
we're so close, guys. I don't know if I included it, but there was a point where they were like, a lot of times, I don't know if it was a quote or if it was just like an inference of just like slaves making jest at like, is it almost Saturnalia?
Okay.
So, which is kind of great.
Yeah.
So slaves were treated to a banquet in equal nature to which would be enjoyed by their masters. So it wasn't just like, here, have some scraps and sit down to dinner.
Sure.
Like it was a full thing.
Yeah.
So, and some conflicting sources state that slaves and masters either ate together or slaves ate first before their masters. So it could go either way. I could see it also just being dependent on the household.
Yeah, per house.
But on top of that, free speech was also allowed and quite popular, as slaves could disrespect and criticize their master without the threat or action of punishment.
Wow.
Right. Of course, these things only lasted during the festival, though.
Well, yeah.
Don't get too crazy. Because, of course, and I didn't really include this, but of course, that was to make sure that the balance continued to be maintained. If we just let it run rampant, then all of a sudden slaves could do whatever they wanted.
We can't have that.
We can't have that. Exactly.
Yikes.
For clothes, while most citizens went about bareheaded during Saturnalia, especially those, they wore the pileus or cone felt hat. So it was like
Like a wizard hat?
yeah, but shorter.
Oh, okay.
Think of like a party hat, but felt. And maybe one that like actually fits on your head.
Sure.
So this was like worn traditionally just like by freedmen only. It was only for freedmen. And like
Okay.
you could wear it whenever. Typically people were just bareheaded, but like you could just wear it whenever.
Yeah.
But slaves could also wear this hat during Saturnalia
Wow.
as well. And it kind of just started to become a little bit more associated with Saturnalia, I think because of its festive nature.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
pointy and fun. You know what I mean? So citizens and slaves would also remove their typical toga wear and put on the Greek synthesis. Which this
What's
was,
that?
let me tell you more, which was a colorful dinner clothes, which was seen to be in poor taste for daytime wear. So I think it was more like a toga was very kind of like formal wear.
Sure.
And so during Saturnalia, they're like, we need to be comfy and fun and colorful. And so they put on these like colorful kind of, in my head, it's more like tunic based, almost like maybe there's some layer to it, but it's not like the same kind of weight and heft as like a toga could
Sure.
have and like the whole arm thing. And
Right.
Which that seems exhausting.
I can get down with it.
To constantly be like this to hold your excess fabric. Would you wear a toga every day?
See, it gets hot, but it did get hot over in the Mediterranean.
Yeah, but that's all you're wearing.
True.
Is just
Staying over a vent, you're good. to
You're
go.
good. Why didn't they come up with vents? So women were also allowed to mingle more socially with men. So female entertainers were certainly present at some of the otherwise all-male gatherings. And role-playing was also active, with some sources hinting at guising or mask wearing.
Oh.
So it got a little...
Cops and robbers.
I think that's the thing is that like they don't... I was waiting for this to be more like, and there was like orgies and this and
Sure.
that. But I think that
It's
was
the
kind
Greeks.
of already, not only that was Greeks, but that was already kind of Rome, especially with like free like Roman-born citizens, like not only was there like the gay aspect where they were allowed to have sex with men so long it was as they were the penetrative role.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. But there was also just kind of we didn't need to talk about it because it was already happening. Like orgies and like sex and like all of those things were so correct. It's not specific to Saturnalia.
Right.
But I think there is some like role playing involved. There's some like mask wearing and it gets a little bit more like fun and fruity and like reversal a bit. Just not as like crazy as we maybe think it might be. I know.
I'll keep to my dreams.
Little disappointing. Little disappointing. So also gambling was big during the time. So gambling and dice playing was permitted for all, including slaves. This was normally prohibited or at least frowned upon within Rome, gambling itself. And so initially only supposed to use nuts as the stakes because they were like, well, we don't want to use money because we're emulating this golden age and there wouldn't have been money because there's no labor and blah, blah, blah. So you're supposed to use nuts.
Sure. Plus slaves don't have any money to gamble with.
Exactly. So knuckle bones were used for games of chance. So they were either rolled like dice or played like jacks, initially made from the foot bones of a goat or sheep. Later they were made from wood, stone, terracotta, glass, bronze, gold, ivory, gems, etc.
Yeah.
And then of course during games, overeating and drunkenness became the rule. A sober person was the exception.
What do you mean?
Like during the games, like people were like eating and drunkenness, and like someone who was sober was just like the odd person out because there was so much drinking and like whatever.
It'd be weird if you were sober.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. I'm sorry. I got a little confused.
You're like, wait a second.
I was like, yeah, they got a DD.
Yeah.
Like, what?
The cart home, the donkey home. So next is gifts. So the Sigillaria is hosted on December 19th and is the day of gift giving. Sound familiar? December 19th.
Okay.
So pottery / wax figures called Sigillaria were made special for the day. Candles or gag gifts were also customary. Children received toys. Gifts of value were not to be given out as it would mark social status, contrary to the spirit of Saturnalia, right? So it's supposed to be just like little things,
sure.
You know? Of course, not all followed the low budget stance, with the poet Martial stating that he saw gifts run the gamut, such as writing tablets, dice, knuckle bones, money boxes, various lamps, perfumes, a sausage, a parrot, cups, spoons, statues, books, and pets, and more. Okay. Right? So cards would sometimes be accompanied with gifts as well, and they would often be poems attached to the gift.
Wow.
And the poem could be like something sweet, it could be something dirty, it could be something just funny and comical. Also, statuettes of beautiful youths. This is what it's always deemed as. I'm not saying it. But statues of beautiful youths and hermaphrodites, phallic cakes, books of filthy epigrams, cosmetics and hair extensions for either sex were also kind of customary gifts during Saturnalia as well.
Right on.
Right on. So not only statues either, but real life slave youths and hermaphrodites would be given as well.
Right on.
Sorry, everyone. So patrons, bosses, masters would often pass along some gratuity to the poorer clients or dependents to help them buy gifts as well. So they might be like, hey, my band of slaves, here's a couple of...
Here's your holiday bonus.
You're getting it. Bring out the whiteboard so we can really get this going. So there was also, of course, a king of Saturnalia. So Saturnalicus Saturnalicus Princeps, ruler of Saturnalia, ruled as master of ceremonies for all of the proceedings. So this was appointed by lot, actually. So similar to the Lord of Misrule at the Festival of Fools, in charge of Christmas revelries, which included drunkenness and wild parties, which was the Lord of Misrule. He creates... Sorry, I keep on going back and forth. My apologies. Let me clarify a little more.
Please.
So, similar to the Lord of Misrule at the Festival of Fools, which the Lord of Misrule and the Festival of Fools kind of happens later, especially like with Christianity. The Lord of Misrule is in charge of Christmas revelries, which included drunkenness and wild partying, which we kind of see some of the kind of correlation there, right? Now back to the king of Saturnalia. He creates and misrules Get it? A chaotic and absurd world. He could give commands such as sing naked, throw him in cold water, shout insults at each other, down your cup of wine, and the guests had to obey.
Okay.
So it was just kind of like a funny little, like, you have to obey my commands and I'm going to make them weird and fun and chaotic and absurd. You know what I mean? So the ruler was one of misrule because during Saturnalia, it was making a mockery of a world in which a law is determined by one man, one ruler.
Oh.
So they were like, okay, well, if one person's going to do it, like, let's just make it funny because it shouldn't be the case.
Yeah.
Right.
It's nice that it was by lot and like random each year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, can you imagine though? Like one year it's like, ugh, John was a terrible king last year. His rules were so bland. No one even danced naked on the table.
Right. Exactly. Like year over year, just like the chaos, like just
let's hope Hank is better this year.
1,000%. If I'm not on a fucking table at the end of the night, 100%. So Augustus actually later likened his reign as the new golden age. So he was like, now that I'm taking over as, ruler, it's going to be like the new golden age, and preferred to be known as a princeps, not as a king or rex, to avoid the hated connotation of the latter. Right?
He's pretty full of himself.
Right. Well, he was, Yikes. So individual households would also sometimes mark their own Saturnalicus princeps, so post the public banquet to keep the fun going.
Sure.
So the initial one that's appointed by lot through the whole community is to reign over the single day and like the public banquet and all of those things. And that would, of course, kind of spill over. But then, of course, the rest of the days, sometimes certain houses would also kind of say, hey, like, this person's going to be, the Lord of Misrule.
Timmy's turn. Yeah.
Timmy's turn. Except Timmy's really fucked up. And Timmy should never get a turn again. So that was kind of the Lord of Misrule. So the last thing I'll say before we talk about some of the influence into like Christmas and the holidays and such is there was kind of a phrase that was used as salutation of the festival or an emotive exclamation or to punctuate a joke. It was just kind of like a catchphrase of sorts.
Is it Merry Christmas?
Surprise. Yeah. So it was either pronounced Io Saturnalia or Yo Saturnalia. So it was kind of like a Io Saturnalia kind of thing. Or Yo. I like Yo better because it's obviously a little bit more modern.
Right.
But like it is I.O. Like, or it's like I.O. is like one word and then Saturnalia. So it was just kind of like a phrase tossed around, whether it's an exclamation or greeting or whatever. So a fun thing. So, yo, Saturnalia. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the festival. That's the activities. Those are all of those things. And again, that was happening in December. So you have the winter solstice happening. You have, honoring this father god of sorts and doing all of those things. So now we're going to talk about the influence in which Christianity kind of stepped in and took over and it does all the things that it does. So,
classic Christianity.
Christianity. So, William Ward Fowler writes, quote, Saturnalia has left its traces and found its parallels in great numbers of medieval and modern customs occurring about the time of the winter solstice, end quote. Which feels a little on the nose. Like, I don't think I needed to quote it, but I liked it in the moment. Now, rereading it, I'm just like, that's what I just said in a different... Anyway, doesn't matter. Okay. It's okay. We love a quote. We love sources, So since the actual date of Jesus' birth is unknown, in the 4th century AD, Pope Julius I formalized that the Nativity would be celebrated on December 25th each year. So Christianity was fully accepted and legalized in Rome by 1313 AD. Constantine and Licinus issued the Edict of Milan, which legalized the practice of Christianity. So by 380 AD, after Pope Julius's service, which he reigned from 337 to 352 AD, the Roman Empire officially adopted the Trinitatium Nicaeum Christianity as its state religion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So before this, Christianity was actually legal and could result in execution or severe punishment. Jewish Christians brought Christianity to Rome in the 1st century, but caused unrest within the Jewish community. Because, Jews don't view him as a savior. So I could see that, This led to the expulsion of many Jews from Rome by Emperor Claudius.
Oh.
I know. Again, people pushed out. The day chosen is sorry, that was a little too not in these times. My apologies. So the day chosen is believed, of course, to correlate with and provide a Christian alternative to the celebrations of Saturnalia. Okay. So another reason may have also been because in 274 AD, Roman Emperor Aurelian had declared December 25th as the birthday of Sol Invictus, the sun god, and Pope Julius wanted another Christian alternative for the people.
Sure.
So it's one of those things where it was like, okay, so December 25th is like this sun god thing. Okay, let's make that like Christmas.
Yeah.
But then like, oh, look, we can like celebrate and have festivity up until Christmas. You know what I mean? Think very Spanish going over to the Mexico.
Yeah. They're just
trying
trying to find a one-to-one.
Correct, exactly. Yeah. So with the close proximity of dates, Saturnalia traditions continue to be used and celebrated and were now associated with Christmas and the surrounding holidays. So oftentimes, like gifts were celebrated on the 19th, like a gift-giving day, but sometimes like gifts could be like pulled out as well, like across the multiple days of celebration.
Sure.
And so some people kind of loosely correlate that a little bit to Hanukkah as well, in the sense of like, oh, okay, over 8 days, you know, we're giving a little, and like in Hanukkah, they're like little gifts. You know what I mean? You're not getting like big things over 8 days. So that's kind of that sort of correlation there too. So continuing in the Middle Ages, ruckus drinking and gambling and overeating prevailed during Christmas time. Of course, the Protestants started to stomp that out, including the king or queen of the bean. And I said, how dare you?
Of the bean?
Of the bean. I'll tell you more.
Please.
So I actually didn't write this out, but basically like, and you see this in some traditions still, like Three Kings, you can like, they'll put like a bean or like a little stone or something like in a bread or a cake.
Oh yeah,
and
little
then,
baby.
Yeah. And then the person who finds it is the king or the queen of the bean. Wasn't as dirty as you were thinking, Devin. All right, so my last couple of things here. So the Puritans, of course, charged forward with abolishing things, including the Lord of Misrule in England. It wasn't until the middle of the 19th century that some of the old ceremonies, such as gift giving, were revived in English-speaking countries.
Oh.
So the Christmas revival was what it was known as, and Charles Dickens sought to support it, but reform the, quote, conscience of Christmas by turning the riotous holiday into a family-friendly occasion. And then I have a note that says boo. And so then lastly, you know, gift giving, lighting of Advent candles equate to Sigliaria and lighting of torches and wax paper and Saturnalia. Both, of course, still encompass eating, drinking, singing, and dancing, just not quite in the ways of Saturnalia. And that is the festival of Saturnalia.
How fun.
And how it equates to Christmas today. Like, there's a lot that happened there that really does still equate to Christmas.
Oh, yeah. There's still a king of fools in my family. It's not picked every year. It's the same person.
Every single year. So I thought that was fun. Just something a little bit different to think about. Like, I think, you know, Christmas today is influenced by a lot of things, right?
Yeah,
like you
100%.
think about like the Christmas tree kind of from like the north of Europe, like Germanic sort of area. You think about some different things. Like Rome did even decorate their house with like branches and trees and things like that, just like we do with wreaths and things. Yeah. So there is some equation there, the holly. So I don't know. It's fun to kind of look at things to say, okay, where did this weird fucking custom kind of come from? Right. Yeah. But of course, capitalism, consumerism has taken little small gag gifts and been like, do you want a new car? That's what you could have for Christmas. You know what I mean? So not quite the same, but, and I also think let's bring back like the overeating, you know, sober person is the exception to the rule sort of thing. I say let's do that.
I'm down.
I bet you Jesus would have wanted that.
He turned water to wine. He was ready to go.
He was a partier. Right, you get it. He was 33. What else do you want to do at 33? Drink wine. Good wine. Right. Exactly. That's all I'm saying. But anyway, that's all I have for you today, Dev.
Hey, thanks for the story. It was great. It's fun to hear about all this coming up into the holiday season. And today is Christmas Eve for those who celebrate.
The Eve of Christ.
The Eve of Jesus.
Right. It not technically born.
Not technically born.
Just throwing it out there. No one really knows today. I think it is September more so, but you know, there's no definitive answer. Mainly because There's no definitive answer. Anyway, all right. Well, thank you everyone for sticking around. Make sure to like, follow, subscribe, do all the things, comment. We hope you have an amazing season and enjoy time with your friends, your family. Do all the things that you love to do. You can follow us at WDYK_podcast, and we'll check you out next week. All right. Thanks, Steph.
Thanks, Nick.
Have a good holiday.
Goodbye now.
Goodbye.